All right, Marc Pitts, welcome to Beyond Fulfillment.
Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. Very excited to talk to you today. So, Marc, you are the co-founder of Discount Vape Pen, and that's a company that's been in the vape pen space for over the last decade. And you've got quite an interesting, almost a classic entrepreneurial story of how you got started and how you grew and scaled this company, which is quite it's what I think all the entrepreneurs listening will really resonate with. But could you just to set the stage for our listeners, can you talk about how you got started and how you got here?
Yeah, absolutely. So around 2007, I graduated high school, so I go into college 07, 08, went in for marketing. And in the course of that, probably a couple years in, this is also, 2007 is the beginning of the iPhone. So coming into school, I'm very excited about marketing. I'm wanting to learn about apps. I'm wanting to learn about products and these things like that. These things are very new, and I learned that wasn't the in the curriculum yet, and so I decided to try and venture out on my own, and I left school, and couple years after that, I met a friend, and he showed me this device, and this is during the time where I'm pretty much just throwing things up on eBay. I've learned about sites like Alibaba, AliExpress, where you can start sourcing some random products from all over the world. So I'm playing around with eBay, trying to make a little side hustle there. He gives me this device. It's a battery. He's telling me what they're doing with it out in California, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. I've never seen anything like this over here. Let me grab a couple. Spend about $20. Put that on eBay, and that thing is one of these vape pens. Put that on eBay. It goes right away. And in my mind, I'm thinking small at the time, like, oh great, I might have something that could make me a couple $100 a month, get rid of my phone bill, that type thing. And every time I spent 20, then I'm spending 40, then I'm spending 200, and it's just going, going, going. And that's when I look at my partner, the other co-founder. Because we were both doing the same thing, putting products up on eBay, and we were like, this might be something, and we put a couple more dollars behind it and started what we got today.
Okay, love that, and so much to unpack just in that short little intro. So let's just start. So you go to college, you're excited, right? You're in marketing, you're going to college, you want to learn. It's the time the iPhone just comes out, apps are now a thing, it's new, you're a young kid, you're ambitious, and then you find out they're not even teaching that in school.
Yes, it was nowhere in there. I was learning more from magazines like Entrepreneur Mag from Inc. than I was in the classes. There, you don't really even get into your core classes until a couple years in, only to find out that they're still on billboards, and what the difference between a slice of life commercial and a testimonial commercial. And I'm like, well, when do we get into the apps? Like, this is taking over. And they had no answers for me. There was nothing in textbooks yet. So I was like, I could either continue with this, and maybe it doesn't take me anywhere. Maybe I land a job somewhere that I don't really like because it's not doing the thing, or I could just, get going on my own. And that's kind of always how I've been anyway. Um, even as a kid, I was always into business. I'm looking at business books. Some of my favorite, movies back then were, like The Game, anything really business related. Um, those were exciting me. So I just left. It's probably about my third year in, halfway in. I was like, I can't do this. So I took off and then try to hack the internet on my own.
If your business is an e-commerce brand, this message is for you. Logistics can make or break you. If you're tired of being just a number to those big box 3PLs, you need to check out our team at Easy DC 3PL. We're a different kind of partner, built specifically for growing brands that ship between 1,000 and 10,000 orders per month. We offer warehousing, fulfillment, and transportation with a focus on personalized service and flexibility. Our central Kentucky location gives you nationwide reach, turning logistics into a competitive advantage. So if you're ready to partner with a 3PL that actually gets your brand, visit easydc3pl.com. Wow. Yeah. And that's a whole other conversation we could have about the relevance of college and how is it keeping up with the way the world's advancing, particularly for business and entrepreneurship. But okay, so you decide you're out, you're going to just figure it out on your own. You get into this affiliate marketing, e-commerce, and eBay, and all these sites are starting to really rise to prominence around this time. So you're playing around selling some stuff, and you come across the vape pen, which had just recently been invented at that time. Like you said, you spend a few bucks on it, you throw it up online, it sells right away. You buy more, sells right away, and again, it's starting to take off. And initially, like you said, you're thinking small, maybe a few $100 here or there. But then, as it continues to grow, the light bulbs went off somewhere, and you realize this is really a thing that could really grow. You had a co-founder who's now your co-founder you're connected with at that time. So when those light bulbs start to go off, and you think this could be a real opportunity here, like what happens next?
So the next thing there, well, at that time, me and my co-founder, we were already at the mindset of, we want to create some sort of business. We had tried our hand in something way earlier in the food industry, like try to do like a little coffee shop deli, but that wasn't us. So we were still searching, and I guess what was going off in our minds once this product started catching on is like, oh, okay, I think this is the thing we've been looking for. Maybe we can really take another stab at, enterprise basically, and see if, hey, maybe we can turn this into a local shop, right? That was really our next step was a local shop, and to have our listing online for on Google. We weren't so heavy on the e-commerce, even though the website came before we actually were able to open our doors in our brick and mortar store. But that the brick and mortar was the idea at the time to go for the next level, just to see what we could drum up. It wasn't so big as it is now. There were shops few and far between. Smoke shop and vape shop were two very separate things, and but we knew that there was a demand for it. I had been to a couple vape shops myself. The conventions were already happening, so I'm like, all right, there's definitely something here, and that's where we got started. We just decided to start buying some office furniture and some display cases, and we got started there.
Okay. All right. So you're thinking brick and mortar, and this is during the rise of e-commerce. So maybe you might
hmm
not have even, right? It was so new at the time, right? Like it seems almost natural to still gravitate towards brick and mortar. So you kind of throw it together and you get the location open up. How did it do when you first opened up?
it was very interesting, right? We always understood the idea of, if you build it, they will come is not really a thing. We understood that. But with this thing in particular, it had such like a magnetism to it. If you remember this in the beginning, everybody would go out and they'd use them and they blow out these huge clouds of smoke, and it kind of like it just where is that coming from? You usually get that look like who's doing this. So when we first got it, we sometimes we'd stand outside in front and we, use the vape, and we're blowing out these huge clouds. And we happened to be in a little plaza with a pizza place next to us, so it had some traffic on its own. And little by little, but not very much long after, within about probably 6 months, we started to have regulars. And for us, that's like, you know we got something. Like we got regular guys who come in and they come and chat with us. We're building something here. We didn't know how big, but it's like okay, we have something that we can continue to pour into. And then within about a year, we had a nice decent flow in there, and it was nice. It was people pretty from all ages really, because a lot of people were getting away from cigarettes because of the smell. So we had all ages coming there, and it was kind of very much like community driven, if that makes any sense. Like there was just people from the local area, and they'd hang out there. Of course they'd spend, but they'd hang out there, and we kind of became a little staple in the little town that we ran.
Okay. And given that, like, you were so new in business, right? Just kind of recently out of high school, dropped out of college, you seem to have this natural entrepreneurial spark. Even after some early failures, we're still always looking out for like what's going to be the next thing, what kind of business
Mhm.
can I get into, and then you find something that starts to take off. How did you navigate like all the things that come along with learning how to operate a real retail establishment and all the other aspects of running a business maybe that you'd have to learn on the fly?
A ton of trial and error. Really, we didn't have any large loans. We didn't have any kind of backing. So it's all bootstrapped, right? It's me and my partner, it's our own money. So when that's the case, you are a lot more cautious in spending. And that is, you know, a good thing to have, at least from my experience when starting a business. If you start off and you walk into a business, you open your doors for the first time, and you have a huge loan behind you, and you still got some of that investment in the bank. You are not um, so aware of your spending, and then you fall into traps because everything doesn't work for everybody, right? So uh, what worked for my shop might not work for another shop, and if we had started with some sort of you know, investor, whether it be the bank or somebody private, we might have looked at other shops and kind of copied what they were doing and could have, broken down a lot sooner than, how we started, just because we were going off of someone else's experience that isn't our own. We're not very conscious of how we're buying, and that's I hope I'm answering the question, but that's more or less one of the things that kind of helped us along, that we were not backed by anything. It made it tougher, definitely, especially when you're trying to maintain inventory and trying to figure out what it is that people are interested in the most when there's seemingly new devices and products coming out every week. You know, it helped us grow in the right way, I should say, by just being fearful of making the wrong decision.
Okay. So you're saying the fact that, like, again, you had no formal training, in any of this, you just had to figure it out as you go, a lot of trial and error.
Mm.
And the fact that you're bootstrapped and you didn't have a huge budget or huge back end, you really felt the ramifications of every financial decision right away. So therefore, that caution really, I guess, helped you early on by not maybe making any foolish investments or spending too much in this area and that area and just being very frugal as you kind of scale the business. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Well, during those early years too, especially when it was challenging and just trying to figure all that out, was there ever a point in time you thought about giving up?
No, I was much more stubborn when I was younger, 13, 15 years ago. So at that time, I'm thinking, we're just gonna win. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna put this together. There's no way out at this point. And part of that is that I never really wanted to work for some sort of corporation or anything like that, or have to go back into that. So it was also one of those things where we were looking to find, some freedom in some sense. So to quit this meant to go back to a way where, our schedule is determined for us and things of that nature.
Okay. All right. So then, as you're growing and scaling, what was the inflection point where things really started to take off for you?
Yeah. So we started our store and the website not at the same moment in time, but they were both in about 2014. So by 2015, when we would have, like I was saying, we had some regular customers at that point. We had a daily, constant flow. But now we've got some actual stock. That was, I want to say, after the holidays of 2014 and beginning of 2015. That was the time when we were seeing actual like revenue beyond what we would spend, right? So that's the point where we're looking at the like scaling up. Like, okay, now we really need to take things to the next level. We need to really dial in on the e-commerce side because the we are getting more traffic from online sales. We still had eBay running at this time, by the way. So we had a website and we had eBay running, and now we're learning about e-commerce and our branding and you know, pretty much owning everything that we put out. And I believe that's when we cut our eBay site and our eBay store, I should say, and started to go just solely e-commerce via our website, and started making the store a little bit more robust, adding the products, employees. That was that period of time. That's when we
Okay.
seen
So you're getting some real growth, right? You decide to just cut eBay and stop paying the higher commissions and just direct it all to your own site.
right.
The store is doing well, and now you're actually hiring. You're hiring employees. What was that like for the first time when it was just you guys kind of bootstrapping your own money, and now you're actually scaling up and hiring employees? How did that change things?
Excuse me. That was interesting. We didn't do it in the way that most people do. I guess most companies do. There wasn't at that time. There wasn't. You could still like get a newspaper and find a job, but we weren't doing anything like that. Indeed was very very young, so we hadn't used any of those tools online. It was all kind of off referrals. So one of our first customers actually became our first employee. He was so knowledgeable of the product itself, and he was there like every other day that it was a no-brainer for us. Okay, we're gonna get you in, and we started with him, and then through him we got a couple of our other employees just because it only made sense. It's a very technical product, especially at that time when there was not much information out about it. You kind of needed to know some of the components in a different way. You needed to know a little bit about electricity. You need to know about resistance and voltage and all this thing. So if you knew this and this is the thing that you did, chances are your friends also know this. So our first customer became our first employee, and some of his friends became our second and third employees because they all already knew this. So it was easy in the beginning. Um, Plus, it helps when the product you want the product, so we can hash out a deal way in the beginning when it was like we were trying to figure out how do we pay someone for this. You're kind of like a tender, like a bartender in a sense at that time. So that was pretty easy for us actually until
Oh,
the later years when we started using Indeed and things like that.
okay. All right. And just with the regulation around that time, with the product being so new, right, and everything kind of almost like a Wild West type of vibe when it was
hmm
kind of coming out, like how did you handle the regulations around that product?
Well, there really wasn't any. There really wasn't any until about 2018, 2017, 2018. Um, there, the tobacco departments at this time we're pretty much just New Jersey. We got sales, in different states, but the bulk of our revenue is coming from our brick and mortar store, and the first probably like 3 years or so, and there really wasn't anything on it. They didn't know how to. I don't know how they end up coming up with this, but they didn't know how to measure, I guess, nicotine. If I'm looking back on it, which took them so long to create regulation. So we just tried to stay on top of what was already there for regular tobacco, right? For cigarettes and things like that. So we, you know, got our regular licenses, and there really wasn't any issue, and that was probably the best part of the industry because everybody had a chance to figure it out and to grow before, getting slammed with all these regulations that to this day they're just kind of like making up new tax numbers every seems like every day. Yeah, it's I get notifications all the time that the new a new rate somewhere. It's like, wow, you're still doing this.
So when that finally happens, right, when the regulations
Mhm,
catch up and they start making all those, those new rules, like how did that
mhm.
impact the business?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough because now we had to do so many more steps on the administration side. Like now you got monthly paperwork where you got to calculate all of these things, decimal points of amounts of nicotine. You got to have different licenses in every state, so it wasn't this way until they made vape its own license. Then they started making licenses for the uh, certain containers of nicotine. So you got free e-juice. That's one type of thing. Then you got the pods beginning. We didn't even have disposable the pens that you see at the gas station. Those weren't even there yet until probably 2019 almost. So it was just once it started, it just never stopped. And then every year there's something, new that's just kind of chopping at you, chopping at the industry. Some people have not been able to hold up with it and got out. Um, and that's for us, that's one of those things that could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, right? There's less competition, sure, but you also shake out a lot of the bad actors and hands that aren't moving properly so that the whole industry can continue forward.
Okay. So then what did you do in response to that? Did you just continue along the same trajectory with the vape and just, handle the regulations and continue to grow?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, we filed, did everything that we were supposed to do, and just kept moving along and kept stayed up with the trend. There's obviously room in the industry where it doesn't have to involve tax products in this way outside of sales tax, like the devices, for example. Devices come out all the time. They get trendy, they get interesting. At that point, there was a lot of uh, things like mods. Mods were devices where you had to literally twist Canthor wire and try and get it to light, and people would have all these conventions and parties on it. So there were still areas of it that were unaffected. It's just the nicotine part that was the part that was hurting a lot of people, and you don't have to go that route. So we, just leveled us out by having more products than anyone else, as opposed to having all these different nicotine flavors that were problematic, because they got to go through whatever process of being taxed or making it to the market. There's a lot of like forum threads about different flavors and who's making it and you shouldn't buy this. So we kind of put that on hold a little bit and grew elsewhere.
Okay. All right. And so where's the company at present day now?
Right now we are completely online, discountvaping.com. So we don't have brick and mortar stores anymore. And we are making a shift, right? So these regulations are just getting more difficult to comply with. Not that it's impossible, but by the time, you know, I would say probably a year or so from now, the thing that attracted people to vape, which was having, um, still being able to get your nicotine without the cigarette and everything that comes with the cigarette, the bad smell, the, major health problems, having to go outside in the cold if you need just to relax a little bit if you want to use smoke a cigarette or anything like that. That's going back. It's going back to what it kind of was. So the only things that are really going to be able to be bought as far as nicotine from a vape is the cigarette tasting, smelling thing that you were trying to get away from. So for us, we're continuing to pivot into devices. There are so many more choices for devices, especially with the rise of dispensaries. Many dispensaries do not hold devices. Um, I'm not sure exactly if they're allowed to have both things, but many of the dispensaries don't have it. And we have always maintained that relationship with the different device brands. So we're in a good position to be a supplier of those materials as opposed to being in nicotine or in THC. So we're moving away from that and just becoming solely a device company.
Okay. So you're leveraging your existing relationships and your history really to specialize in the one area that's not going to be impacted by these regulations, where you can just
Right.
niche down, and that's going to be where your niche is.
Right.
Okay. All right. And Marc, as you look back at this whole journey, right, the way you
Hmm.
started, dropping out of college, just kind of messing around online, coming across something, continuing to take this messy, imperfect action you know, starting with a $20 investment, selling it online, and then scaling that into a multi-million-dollar company that's been around over a decade now. When you look back at all that, what's been the best part of it for you?
Probably the freedom, knowing that I'm in control of not just my schedule, like everybody else would like to point out, but you're in control of your destiny in a sense. There's no there's no one above my partners and I to tell us that we can't do something. Sure, we want to work within the limits of the law, of course, but no one makes our schedule, right? We can expand or uh, consolidate anywhere we want. We could move if we want to. We get to be with our families and not be, confined to someone else's, schedule of our time. So that's probably the best thing. And, you know, all things aside, there's a lot of stress in it, but I wouldn't change anything about, you know, how it started and where we are now.
Okay, love that. All right, and Marc, if people want to reach out, learn more about Discount Vape Pen, or you and your own story, or just connect with you online for any other reason, what's the best way people can find you online?
The best way would be to go right to the website, discountvaping.com. We have a live chat. A lot of times I'm in that live chat, so you can jump in there and you'll see my face pop up, and it's not a bot, it's really me. Or you could go to uh, my LinkedIn page, Marc Pitts. Look me up.
Okay, all right, we'll link out all that in the show notes for everyone as well. All right, Marc, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and sharing all this incredible wisdom from your journey with our listeners. We greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely, I appreciate you having me.